What's going on, you guys? Welcome to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple. If you're looking to create more in your life, and if you want more of anything, it's not about doing more, it's about being more. So I'm excited you're here, and I'll see you guys on the inside. Well, I know you started your businesses at a young age while you were still in college. So, what was kind of the why behind that? I'm sure making money was part of it, right? When we're young, that's seems to be why we do a lot of the things we do. But, what was the why originally, and what has that kind of evolved to, now that you're a little bit more mature in the game?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd been going to college playing baseball at a small private school in North Carolina. Came home for the summer and needed to find a job. And it was like 2009, summer of 2009, and didn't really have a whole lot of real work experience. I had odd jobs in high school and stuff, delivering pizzas, working, just standard high school, pretty much minimum wage stuff. And my dad was like, hey, you got to work this summer. We're not just going to keep floating your bill. You're a grown man now, so you got to get after it. And so I went around applying everywhere. And it was kind of the middle of the recession still. Our family, I grew up in Venice, Florida. So it's kind of like a tourist town, kind of snowbirds with, older retirees coming down for the winter. And so the summertime slows down a lot, and there weren't a lot of places hiring. I must have applied to like 30 jobs and couldn't really find anything. So I started posting these ads on Craigslist saying college athlete, looking to do any kind of general labor, because I figured, I like to be outside. I was in good shape, and kind of got a bunch of odd calls at first. I was doing some lawn mowing. I had gotten some just side gigs working as like an assistant for a handyman and a carpet cleaner. But I also started to get a lot of calls helping people load and unload U-Haul trucks. And people liked the idea of hiring a college student to help them move. And I had a pickup truck too, so I could run little tiny things, small deliveries and stuff in my truck. And that made pretty good money that summer. I for the first time, I experienced like kind of real entrepreneurial freedom in the sense of just being able to set my own schedule, being able to charge what I wanted to charge. People were generally really nice. I got to see a new job site every day. So it was kind of, it wasn't just some monotonous task of sitting behind a desk somewhere or cash register. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting all the different people. And by the time the summer was over, I'd saved up a few $1,000s in cash. If my friends were going to the beach, I could go to the beach. I didn't have to miss out on life with a regimented work schedule. And so I ended up transferring to the University of Florida. I completed my undergrad there. And throughout college, I was kind of doing the same thing up in Gainesville, just advertising online and through word of mouth that I could, work as a mover. I had kind of tried to start like a legit business in like the moving space. Called Smarter Moving Solutions. Didn't really go anywhere. Ended up working with another moving company for a little bit. And then when it came time to graduate, I had to figure out what I was going to do. And I had gone to school for telecommunications, broadcast journalism. Got burnt out on that. Did not see myself going down that path. And so I applied for an entrepreneurship program with the business school and for a master's degree. And so I started that pretty much a month after I graduated undergrad. And part of that program, we were supposed to start a business. And so I kind of, was like, what am I going to do? What kind of business? And like this moving thing had just been on my mind for the last few years. I'd kind of just done it freelance and, picked up gigs with other companies as a contractor and stuff like that. And I was like, I think I can make something work here. The college-themed moving company concept, people like to hire college students. I'm going to try to give this a shot. So I did the research. I was at the age of 21, was able to get business insurance, commercial moving insurance, and got a mover's license. Still had my pickup truck. Eventually I got a trailer for it. And we actually competed against the original Two College Brothers company for like 2 summers. I graduated from that program and I was pursuing this full time. We had started to get some traction, and they had reached out to me and they wanted to sell the business. And I was shocked because I idolized this company. They had been around for a couple years longer. I thought they were a lot bigger than they were. Once we reached an agreement, I ended up buying out the company. I realized that they weren't really too much bigger than I was at the time. But now I had these 2 companies. I had just paid, all the money that I had and then some to acquire it. And so I tried to run the 2 companies kind of side by side for a little while until I realized, let's just pursue one brand, so we don't have to have 2 websites, 2 trucks, 2 uniforms, 2 sets of everything. And so I liked the idea of two college brothers branding. They had a bigger customer base. They'd been around longer. And so I ran with that. And my dream, I guess I should say, was always to franchise. And I thought that they had a very franchisable brand. And, I wanted to learn more about the franchising concept. But first, I knew I needed to perfect the actual core business model. So I just did everything I could to try to learn that, a lot of trial and error. Around 2017, 2018, I was kind of stuck. I felt like, we weren't really making any money, didn't really know what I was doing. My life was crazy. I was super busy. I worked 100-hour weeks, just constant stress. All my friends, were getting these big corporate jobs places, and they were able to afford nice things. And I still felt like I was still in that like college mode. So I started to pick up the phone, call other moving company owners that seemed successful, that were kind of where I wanted to be in different markets, and just had conversations with them and picked their brain on, what do I need to do in this business? And then I had such good conversations. I was like, wow, like this is so valuable. I'm pulling all these nuggets, all these different little nuances. And I was like, there's no moving company podcast that exists. Let me turn these conversations into podcasts and use the podcast as a vehicle to be able to reach, even more successful companies. So started the podcast like 2017, 2018, and just learned a ton. I started going to moving company conferences. I got connected with the biggest players in the industry. Started to just kind of mastermind and have, closed door conversations with a lot of these companies. We met up for our very first mastermind event where we were all rented an Airbnb in like the winter, I think, of 2019, and had so many big takeaways from that. And then, of course, COVID hit. And we were just starting to get traction. Like at that point, 2018, 2019, we were finally getting some traction, and COVID hits, and I don't know what to do. Like, is this going to be the end of this, 7-year, 8-year business that I've been, pouring everything into, or is there an opportunity here? And so it actually ended up being an opportunity. A lot of companies froze up, they withered away, they closed down, they sold their trucks, and we were able to get up a bunch of market share. And we had challenges for sure during COVID that we had to navigate, but a lot of people moved. The housing market exploded, and we were right in the right position to take advantage of that. And so we actually started, me and another moving company owner that I had met through that whole journey, started a retreat business where we would bring together moving company owners to mastermind for a weekend on more of like a structured basis, while I continued to run my moving company. And then finally got to the point where, wow, we're growing like 50 to 100% year over year. I think I finally got these systems and these processes dialed in. I know what marketing works. I know how our numbers need to look, and decided to finally feel like I was ready to start the franchising process. So we got a franchise attorney to draw up our paperwork, our franchise disclosure documents. And, at that point, I felt like I had reverse engineered the moving industry, at least the moving, how to run a moving company, how to provide the best experience for customers. And that basically turned into a franchise entity. And we just sold our first franchise earlier this year. We're trying to sell more franchises. But as far as the freedom goes, the last couple of years have been a lot of freedom. I mean, I've been able to travel all over the world. There was a period in time last year where felt like I was going on trips like every couple weeks. It seemed like I was in a different city or a different country. So, it's been definitely a ride, a long journey, but, by sticking through it, I'm in a position where I can design my own schedule. I've got a team that works under me that I can delegate a lot of the things that I don't like to do to, and just have fun. I'm having a lot of fun right now, and we're trying to scale through the franchising model while continuing to also grow the core business here in Tampa.
Wow, that was a lot. Man, that's awesome. You said something to the effect of, can finally start franchising, but man, probably seems like a lot longer than it actually was. But, you did a tremendous amount of things in a small amount of time. And I love that now you're franchising out and letting other people leverage your genius. So with regards to franchising, like, what kind of people are you looking for to partner with in the franchising model?
Yeah. So, I'm learning new things every day about who the ideal franchisee might be. But I mean, the moving industry, it can be tough, but we've designed a lot of systems and processes to make it not tough, especially once you grow to a place where you can delegate a lot of those systems and processes. As far as the ideal person, there is an investment that needs to be made. I had completely bootstrapped the business with like $600 in a pickup truck, and it took me a long time to figure it out. But if I knew back then what I know today on how things should be structured and how they should look and the processes that we need to implement, then I'd be in a much better position than I current, I'd be much further along, I should say. It wouldn't have taken me 7 or 8 years to grow. It probably would have taken me 2 to 3 years to get to the place that I'm at today. And that's ultimately what we want to instill in our franchisees. So the person needs to be hardworking. They need to be a good people person, because you deal with a lot of people in the moving industry, from your employees to your customers. You got to be able, it's a very labor intensive business. You need movers and drivers and managers and salespeople. So you need to be able to lead people, but you also need to be customer facing. You need to be able to network with people. Having a strong network is so important because of the word of mouth in this business. And then the capital, it would be ideal to start out with, at least our minimum investment is around $115,000, which in the scope of franchising really isn't that much. A lot of franchises are over $1 million to get started, or several hundred thousand at the very least. But really, you just need to start with 2 trucks. You'd wrap the trucks, have an office space where you could hire and train and talk with clients, and basically, keep equipment and park the trucks at. And then some marketing stuff that we know that works, but there's some upfront cost in getting that set up. And then over time, it'll yield a strong return on the investment. So somebody who, I'd say the ideal person, they've got a little bit of capital. Maybe they work in corporate America. Maybe they've got some savings and they've always wanted to own their own business. Maybe they've worked in the moving industry. Maybe they even own a moving company, and they're kind of stuck like I was several years ago, and they're looking for a better recipe for success and brand leverage. That's the type of individual that we would like to see. We want somebody who can be like a titan in their hometown, really dominate their hometown market, get out, pound the pavement in the early days for the first year, and really make the connections. Not afraid to put in work if they have to, but knowing that they can build it up to a point to where they can have the flexibility and freedom that I think ultimately every business owner wants to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole point. We didn't go into business to be busy, right? So
That's right.
what about like ROI? What's the timetable look like on that for people who are going into the franchise model you built?
Yeah, so we've got a $1 million guarantee, which basically means that if you follow our systems and processes and you come in with the right capital, you'll get up to $1 million in annual revenue within 3 years. And if you don't, and you've done everything right, then we'll let you out of the franchise agreement and refund your franchise fee. And no other franchise that I know of is doing that right now, especially in the moving industry. That's how confident we are in our systems, our processes, the marketing that we know works across the country, that people will get a lot of traction very quickly. We strive to get our franchisees to 20% net profit, even with the growth. We want to see like 30 to 50% growth year over year. In the early days, are going to grow a lot faster. But even now, our Tampa location is growing like 80% year over year. And we have all of the different metrics for cost of goods sold, for labor expenses, marketing, everything else, to basically design it to earn 20% EBITDA after royalties and fees are paid. So it can be a very lucrative business, and it's very recession resistant because, regardless of a good economy or a bad economy, people move. They move to find other work somewhere. A lot of times employers will pay to bring them places. They'll move, life transitions, life happens. You get married, you get a divorce, you have kids, you're probably going to move, in all of those situations. Somebody in the family passes away, there's just always a situation where people need the service. We were an essential service during COVID, and it's something that it has a lot of potential. And there's the commercial side of things too, moving businesses and offices and doing storage and receiving work and that sort of a thing. So, it's a cash flowing business. We get paid most of the time, at least on the residential side, the day that the work is performed, so that you can pay your team right away. You're not waiting around on receivables. You're not, and your tickets are generally pretty large. Our average ticket is around $3,000. So, we're running 15 trucks in Tampa most days, and our average job size is about $3,000. And sometimes we have jobs that are 20 or 30 grand. Sometimes they're a little bit smaller, but ultimately, it cash flows very well, and you can grow very quickly when you have that oxygen that is cash flowing into the business.
Very cool, man. Well, let's shift gears for a second. I want to really learn about your leadership because obviously you're doing something right, especially if you have 80% growth. That's pretty outstanding. So you're not doing that all by yourself. And if you're not, creating trust and transformation as a leader, then you're probably not growing like that. So, you said something to the effect of, I wish I would have known then. Like, what's something now as a leader that you wish you would have known in the beginning?
Yeah, so I think just seeking out the mentors that are like industry specific. I read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts in the early days. Listened to a lot of Audible while I was driving around from appointment to appointment to networking event, all that stuff. And once I finally, kind of learned the ins and outs of the moving industry, that helped a lot. And I think just also knowing your numbers and learning from those mentors, where does every single line item need to be compared to revenue? What is the appropriate budget for marketing? Like, how much of a return should every piece of marketing get? How do you create marketing that you can track and know exactly what it's doing? A lot of business owners just throw a bunch of money at the wall and hope that the phone rings,
Yeah.
but that's really not a good way to do it. I mean, we know if a new marketing source is working within 90 days, and I've studied a lot of the psychology of marketing from a lot of really good authors like Dan Kennedy, Donald Miller, a lot of these, Joe Polish, a lot of these guys that are experts in the marketing field, and everything from the copy to write on ads to or radio or whatever the audio might be of it, to the pictures that you should use representing your ideal clients, to calls to action, limited time offers and limited availabilities, kind of basically making like a direct response approach to marketing. If I would have known numbers and marketing in the early days, we would have been much better equipped for success. Back then, even though I had a master's degree in business, I really didn't take seriously the importance of accounting and cash flow projections and a lot of the financial stuff, how to read a profit and loss statement. And, I just kind of went by, how much money do I have in my pocket at any given time? And that's not a good way to run a business because things sneak up on you. And if you're not prepared, failure to prepare is preparing to fail, basically. So the numbers help give you the roadmap, and they're kind of your headlights, so to speak, on where you're going, instead of just constantly reacting and seeing how much money you have at a time and if you can afford to buy this or that. By getting that stuff dialed in, you're much better equipped to endure tough times, but also just to know how fast you can possibly grow and still maintain a profit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And so what's next for you guys, and thinking through that lens of, the direction you're headed and the vision you have for that, what's one of the things that you feel like is standing in the way or slowing you down a little bit from getting towards that vision?
Yeah. So, I mean, what's next? We're trying to basically, we're trying to turn our Tampa location into a $10 million location by 2025. I think that's a pretty realistic goal based off of our trends over the last 3 or 4 years. Right now, we're sitting around $4 million, but we are growing very quickly right now in our Tampa office. And then I'd like to sell 12 to 13 franchises in the next 2 to 3 years, mostly in the southeastern Florida. But if the right person came along in another state, I would definitely entertain that too. The reason I want to kind of keep it relatively local, A, so that I can be there to support them, help them grow. B, so that there's that brand leverage. The more trucks we have on the road and across different locations, moving from city to city, the more people that recognize the brand. And so when they go online and search for it, it's a household name that they recognize. See the vendor relationships, being able to leverage costs by buying things in bulk, having that purchasing power there, including on marketing stuff, things like SEO, search engine optimization, and, some other stuff that we figured out that we can, basically, incorporate across a larger area than just the local, because we can save money for everybody if we do a larger mass marketing campaign than we do just, trying to look like that in a very local concentrated market. As far as like some of the hurdles that make that challenging, I would say is finding the right people to get on the team. Whether it's finding the right franchisees, the first 10 franchisees from all of the mentors in franchising that I've spoken to are crucial to a franchise's success. Most franchises don't either succeed or they just tap out and they get to a point where they stop selling locations and they just get comfortable. But getting a system and a process dialed in to find those right franchisees, and then from the local standpoint with the core business, getting to a $10 million company in the Tampa Bay area is just finding the right people on the team, the people that are on the bus, that believe in the vision, that they see the path to advancement, whether they start in an entry level position like moving, and then they work their way into management or work their way into sales, or ultimately even work their way into owning their own location one day. Those are the people that I'd say is probably the toughest part of this business, and just the base hurdle to growth is just getting the right people on board, people that are performance driven, that are winners and very competitive individuals that fit our core values and believe in the vision and are willing to follow the systems and the processes.
Well, what are your core values?
Our core values are be honest, own it, hone it, and hustle. So you've got be honest. Obviously, honesty is kind of the cornerstone of everything. You got to be able to trust the people that you're working with. Your customers need to be able to trust everybody in the company. Owning it, ownership, like extreme ownership. Take ownership in the job you're doing. Just because you're a mover right now, own that position. Be the best that you possibly can at it. Or if you're farther up in the company, just take ownership of your roles and responsibilities that you have. Don't make excuses. Be a problem solver, not a problem finder. Honing it, honing your skills. I'm constantly reading books and listening to podcasts and Audible books and reaching out to mentors and going to conferences, doing the podcast. So if I'm constantly honing my skills and training on myself and investing in myself, I expect everybody else in the company, all the way down to the entry level positions, to be doing the same thing in order to get to where I'm at, because I was in that position at one point too as a mover, when I was starting out, and I've worked every role in the company, and through learning how to master each position, they put me in a position to where I can lead people that I would also want to be mastering those positions. And then hustle, we want to be the hardest working company in the world. We want to be, if you're working in the company, you should aim to be the hardest working person in the company. I myself still work very hard. Now it's on things that I want to do, that I have fun doing. Whereas in the past, it was stuff that I had to do. But having a team, I don't really like the operational side of the business at this stage, managing all the movers on a day-to-day basis, getting them out on the road on dispatching. So I hire for that. But, hustling and doing that at some point, even though I didn't necessarily like it at the time, is what put me in a position to where now I can work on the stuff that I want to work on. And I'll lose track of time because I'm so immersed in a project for the company or for one of my other companies. And, if I do want to go do something operational related or something that I don't otherwise want to do, it's because I'm more or less most of the time choosing to go do that because of whatever reason, because I want to dive in and see what's going on and see how we can improve it versus, being chained to that kind of a role.
Ooh, that's powerful stuff, man. Well, let's go into the little fire round here at the end, man, so you can get back to taking over the world in Florida and beyond. So
Yeah.
you mentioned books like 5 different times, and I love to read too, and I think leaders are readers for sure. So what's a favorite book to read, recommend, or give away?
Yeah, so I just finished up a book called Elevate. It's all about building a winning team, and I actually just did a podcast with the author. He owns a big garage door company. His name's Tommy Mello, out in Arizona, and I think he has like locations in 26 other states right now, like $200 million company. Just had him on the podcast, went on his, had a great time there. Kind of a new mentor that I found, I think. But he wrote that book, and that's kind of what prompted me to reach out to him. So it's called Elevate by Tommy Mello. He also has a podcast called The Home Service Expert. But his book's not just geared towards home services. I definitely recommend it for anybody who's trying to build a winning team. And then another author that I love, his name's Dan Kennedy. And he's got an entire line of books called, it's like the No BS series. I started with the No BS Guide to Direct Response Marketing for non-direct response marketing businesses. He's got a great book on time management. He's got a great book on managing people and profits. I got his entire library. I've ordered all of his books. I've probably read about 80% of them so far. So those are all great places to start. I mean, I could go on and on about, business books. There's a lot of the very, very popular ones that I read very early on, like Rich Dad Poor Dad, E-Myth Revisited, 4 Hour Work Week. Like those those all have really good takeaways too. At this stage, I'm looking at mostly books, like if they're like in certain categories. So if I'm looking for something on leadership or hiring or building a team, or if I'm looking at something really digging into marketing and going down that rabbit hole, or operational type stuff, time management stuff. There's another one that I just finished called Buy Back Your Time. That is a really good one for any entrepreneur that feels too busy. And one of the things he talks about in that book, I think Dan Martell is the author. He says the first thing any entrepreneur should do is hire a personal assistant to take off the time sucking, low revenue activities off your plate that you don't like to do, and focus on the stuff that you're good at that produce high revenue generating activities. So definitely check that one out too. Donald Miller, there's a book, Building a Story Brand, that I really like as well, that talks a lot about kind of making your customer the hero of the story, really defining who your ideal customer is, and then gearing your marketing towards that individual. So I think that's a good place to start. I could talk for it. We could do a whole podcast on books, though.
Yeah. Oh man, for sure. Yeah. And somebody else was recommending Elevate recently. So when you keep hearing the same thing recommended, it's probably a time to check it out. And Donald Miller's got a bunch of really powerful books. He's a great writer and really good at
I need to go
simplifying.
more down. Yeah, I think that's the only one of his I've read. I need to read more because I really liked that one. There's some other good ones too for entrepreneurs that are kind of in the early stages, by a guy named Mike Michalowicz.
Yeah.
The Profit First and Pumpkin Plan. I really enjoyed those as well.
Yeah, I just read one of his books. I think it was Get Different. I think that's his book.
Okay, is that a newer one? I don't think I've read that
I
one yet.
feel like it is, if that's his book. I just read one of his books, but I can't remember if that was the one that was his or not, but because he's got a pretty memorable name for sure.
Yeah.
All right. What is, you touched on a little bit, but I want to revisit. What does freedom mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, basically the ability to work on the stuff that you want to work on. I don't necessarily think I'll ever fully retire in the traditional sense of the word, because I love working. I mean, it's honestly a hobby. Like I am fired up every day when I get up. Sometimes I work late into the night. I mean, of course, I spend time with family and friends, but I can do that when I want to, and I can work when I want to. And I think being able to design your own schedule, work on what you want to work on. I really like, writing and podcasting and speaking and stuff too. So, doing stuff like this podcast to me is freedom. There's a time where it would have been really hard in the middle of the day for me to come on something like this. Being able to travel. I'm kind of a homebody. I know a lot of people, you probably hear people say being able to travel the world. And I recently heard somebody say they were going on vacation and traveling the world for a year. And I don't even think I would like that, but having the option to do that, of course, is freedom to the person who wants to do that. But just because one person defines that as freedom doesn't mean that, you have to make that freedom. I mean, my freedom, I was supposed to fly up to Boston next week for a working event, which I think got canceled, and I might still go just so I want to work on some creative projects, and I think being in a different environment would kind of open up my mind to be a little more creative. So being able to just take a couple of days off to go turn off my phone and stay at a nice hotel somewhere and just see a different landscape, to me that's definitely freedom too.
All righty. Last question. Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to really build up the personal brand a little bit. I've got a lot of projects going on that that I'd like to share with people that are interested in following the journey that I'm on Instagram. So you can follow me at Wade Swikle, just my first and last name on Instagram. And then, of course, if you're interested in a franchise or want to reach out and talk business, or if you want a moving company, you can always send me an email. I don't know if I can say my email on here, but it's, I don't care if people email me. It's wade@twocollegebrothers.com. So either one of those, message me on Instagram or shoot me an email, and I'm happy to connect.
Yeah. And if you're checking him out on Instagram, it's Swikle, Swikle. And check him out. Big brain, big heart. That's exactly the kind of people we love on this show. So man, thanks for coming on and sharing with us. Well, actually, one more question. Anything that I didn't ask that you'd love to share about before we get out of here?
If you're interested in starting a business or going into business for yourself and not by yourself and not making all the mistakes that I made early on, I made them all so that you don't have to. And the moving industry sounds interesting to you, then I'd be happy to discuss franchising too. Obviously we're going to be selective and we want the right people on the team, and they have to have the right character traits and personality traits to enjoy this business as much as I do. But it's not. It sounds like a tough business, and it can be a tough business, but it can also be a very lucrative business that can create a lot of freedom for you and really make you a hometown hero or a hometown titan and a pillar of your community. And because everybody from the mayor to the biggest business person in your town has to move at some point, and it's a great way to provide an essential service for people in your area.
Ooh, well said. Well, thanks for being here, brother. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
All righty. Thanks for listening, you guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Alrighty, you guys, thanks for making it through to the end of the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with us. Really grateful to have amazing listeners like you. Thank you guys again for listening. We love you, and we'll see you next time inside the Unlock Your Freedom podcast with Kevin Kepple.